2025 slapped me in the face.
Not sure I deserve that.
I posted over 500 pieces of content across several platforms. I worked up until 80 hours per week consistently, and I didn't get the results that I wished for. Not even close.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yeah, thank you. So I ended a relationship. I injured myself so badly that I still cannot walk properly, got a nasty knee injury. And that led to me falling into a hole of procrastination where I had to find my way out of. On the upside though, I grew my coaching business and helped a lot of clients. I meditated a lot, I read a lot, I educated myself every single day. I found new friends and I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu until I got injured. So all in all, 2025 had a lot of challenges and lessons for me. So I'm really excited to reflect on that whole year and compress all of this into this video. Lesson number 1 lies in my journaling process because I completely restructured the way of how I did it. So I am keeping a journal for like 6 years now. This is how they look. And back in the day I used smaller ones, some with lines, some with squares. But now I switched to completely blank ones. Blank and big, like optimally normal paper size, DIN A4, it's what it's called in Germany. So back in the day, I just started to write from the start until the finish. The problem is this is very unstructured. So what I used to do is I had several journals for several topics, but that, gets out of hand. So now I have a way more elegant solution. I have one journal with like several chapters in it. So I show you how that looks like. Here I have a chapter called Turning Pro, and this one is inspired by the book with the same name from Stephen Pressfield. It's a great book. So this section mainly contains YouTube related stuff or productivity stuff or entrepreneur stuff, book reviews or business masterminds that I went to. For example, Tony Robbins' 4-day retreat, Unleash the Power Within, that I will talk later in this video a little bit about. So the other chapters are about communication, coaching, sales, how to set up ads, and my coaching community. In my journal for 2026, I changed the sections a little bit. I added a section called Book Notes, where I dedicated only the things that I learned from books, and another one that's called One-Liners. But I can make a more in-depth video about journaling if you want, where I can detail every little chapter and all the other stuff. Then there is a front cover, and here I have to give credit where credit's due, and that's to Clark Kegley, who inspired me with my new journaling approach. So on the top of the front cover you have a number. In my case, 21,900, and these are the days until I am 90 years old. So I have this number now in every journal every year, so I see the number decreasing. And it gives me a good appreciation and feeling for my time. That maybe sounds weird in the first moment, but it actually gives me the feeling that I have more time. And it makes me less stressed to have the number decreasing year by year. At the bottom of the page, I have personality tests that I do every year, so I can compare them with myself. For example, the Myers-Briggs test. Here I scored an INFJ, so an introverted, intuitive, feeler, and judger. And next to it is a strength test, which is very important in my opinion to be aware of your strength. The author of the book Flow writes, the happiest people in the world know their strength and use them often. So I think it's very important to know your strength in order to make good decisions. And right down under is the DISC test. In my opinion, it is important to mention that those personality tests have to be viewed with a little grain of salt, because your personality is not a static thing. You change day by day, so don't take test results too serious if you decide to make one of those tests yourself. For me, it's interesting to see how the results change over time because I can always compare it with myself, and I can see in which way am I developing. Last year I was an ENFJ, this year I am an INFJ, so from extroverted to introverted. And it makes sense that I changed to an introvert because I had the injury. I was not very social. I couldn't even go to work. So I was definitely more introverted. I actually just lay around and got fat.
Hamburgers, cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast.
Then still on the first pages, I collect all quotes that I enjoy, that I resonate with over the year. Something that I hear in a podcast, or I hear in a YouTube video, or in a conversation, read in a book, whatever. Okay, so far we have the front cover and the sections. The back cover is missing, and there we have our goals. So last year I went crazy with the goals. I didn't reach all of them, so I will put less goals this year and more intentions. So here are my goals, separated in work, rest and play goals. I didn't achieve some of them, others I crushed. But for this year I set less goals, which are the most important, and I decided to have 3 per category. And those I will achieve no matter what. And under that are intentions, kind of nice to have goals, which I am working on, which I try to make, but which will not be a big deal if they will not be achieved. So there's less pressure, and sometimes life just throws something in the way. Another thing I added for this year's journal are 90-day reviews, where I will do in once per quarter, assess how the last 3 months went for me. I ask certain questions to reflect on them and to set myself up for the next quarter, how they do it in every business. But yeah, if you want to see a really structured video about journaling, write it down in the comments and I will make one. Alright, lesson number 2 is the secret to unlimited willpower. I heard Andrew Huberman speaking about this in a podcast where he mentioned a brain part called the anterior mid-singular cortex. And this is a muscle in your brain that grows through willpower and tenacity. Or on the other side, weakens through too much comfort. So willpower is like anything. If you don't use it, you lose it. And I think that really explains a lot. Why it's so easy to do hard things once we're in the habit of doing them, and why it's so impossible sometimes to get ourselves out of a hole when we're stuck in it. I once made a video about the one thing from Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, and here I speak about the science of habit building. Research indicates that forming a new habit takes from 18 to 254 days. And for most people, 66 days seems to be the sweet spot, at which you don't really need any discipline anymore to keep up that habit. And when you manage to integrate one habit, then you focus on the next. You know, that's how successful people got to where they are. They integrated one healthy habit at a time. So willpower is something that can get enhanced. When I think back, when I was like 19 or 20, something that worked very well for me was to tell myself that I have crazy willpower. And I honestly believed that. It turned to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it helped me to just stop taking drugs all the time when I was like daily consuming something. I just forced myself to stop. One of the consequences of this was that I couldn't see my friends for a long time. But that was the price, and I exchanged drugs with the gym. And after some time I was sports addicted, but that's at least the one addiction that doctors recommend. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, says, "Do something once and it's a new experience. Do something twice and it is a new habit." So that was lesson number 2. Willpower is basically just a habit. I thought that was very interesting. But sometimes willpower is not the right approach. And that brings me to lesson number 3. Sometimes the best step forward is a step backwards.
You serious?
Yes, I'm that serious. I told you guys I had an injury this year. It happened in martial arts class, and it was a nasty knee injury. So I had to cure myself and couldn't walk too much. So I was basically lying down a lot, but I wasn't curing myself. I was just vegetating. I created a new habit, the habit of procrastination. And this period went on for, I think, about 10 weeks, and I hated it. I hated my life. I was so not pleased with everything, especially not with myself, because I had so much work to do and I just couldn't get myself to do it. Usually my trick is to work out really hard in the gym, and that makes regular life way easier. Because through the movement, my fears or general resistance gets very weak and much easier to handle. But that didn't work for some reason. And it wasn't because I went easy in the gym, because my upper body is fine. I still could do crazy calisthenics move, I could do pull-ups, push-ups. That can be a very hard workout. So I had to figure out a different way. And something came to mind that my coach once said to me, which was sometimes the best step forward is a step backwards. Why ever? You replenish your creative energy, you see things from a different standpoint, you see the bigger picture, and don't get lost anymore in every little detail or in whatever else that was holding you captive before. So at first I tried to accept the situation that I was in. Maybe it was a sign that I worked too hard and my body needed rest. I was not trying to force something anymore. And luckily Christmas was around the corner and I could get out and get back home. And I don't know how it is for you, but when I go back to my hometown and see all my old friends and my family and everyone, like sometimes it's just completely refreshing and sometimes it's really depressing. But this time, thank God, it was really recharging. It felt really, really good. And that marked like a restart. And even while I was there, while I was back home, I could already do work that I procrastinated on here in Berlin, where I live now. And I got done so much there. And when I then came back to my place here in Berlin, I was already back in my working mode. I was already back in my mojo. So getting out and having a new outlook on everything helped me really on the tasks that I procrastinated, which were basically tasks around the sales part of my business. You know, I love coaching. I love helping people. That's really what I love doing. But the sales part of the business, that's definitely something that I really have to learn. I wouldn't say it's really unnatural for me, but it's something that definitely had a lot of resistance.
A, always be B, C, closing. Always be closing.
There is this quote, the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And in my case, that's definitely very true. And I know why the resistance was so strong around that, because this would really make a huge shift in my whole lifestyle, in my whole life in general. And it's probably just a strategy from my ego to keep me where I am, to hold me back from getting into the unknown, from stepping up into the next level, into my higher self, whatever you want to call it, into my potential. A question that I have, and maybe you do have an answer to it, how can you differentiate between resistances? Because sometimes you have to go into it, and sometimes there's a good reason for it, and it's actually protecting you. And it would be very dangerous or stupid to go into that resistance. I don't have such an easy time to differentiate that. So if you do have any insights on that, please let me know in the comments. I would really appreciate it. I'm genuinely curious about that. Anyway, next. Lesson number 4, don't bring your dreams to people who are not dreamers. And what I mean by that is I experience pushback, especially from home. Many YouTubers know this phenomenon and view it as something that eventually happens once you expose yourself like that. This ties in with the fear of showing yourself or being seen. I often hear something like, oh, I could never expose myself publicly like that. And fair enough, of course, I understand that that's frightening. But, you know, this is just a fear. It's just an insecurity. We grow with our challenges. And once you take a courageous step, for example, showing yourself, you can trust that you will grow in competence and confidence along the way. You know, every new level that you have in life comes with a new devil. But you will always be more competent in dealing with this new devil if you have the trust to go into the unknown. And I trust in myself that if something happens in the future, I will have the competence to handle it. As I said, I believe this insecurity can be handled by going into the unknown courageously and by hard work. Without hard work, nothing is going to happen, in my opinion. Now to come back from the pushback I experienced from these so-called friends. And at first I was hurt a little bit, but only for a short while, because my real friends stand behind me. And those who aren't are not people that are, let's say, vibrational match anymore. Some relationships are allowed to fade away. And this YouTube stuff and the entrepreneur stuff, it's all very, let's say, energy consuming, and I would even call it hard. And especially because you have to face so many doubts sometimes and so much that is unknown, that you have to keep your mind and heart in a good place. And whoever is there to drag me down is just no one who can have a place in my life anymore. That's just how it is. I stand behind my people always, and I expect the same from them. And who isn't can fuck off. That's how I see it now. When people back home calling you out and telling you you have changed, that's just because they don't know how to say you have grown. And like I said, the only thing I accept is like emotional support if you want to be in my inner circle, period. Because everything else is just holding you back, and whoever or whatever is holding you back from evolving into your higher self has to be cut out from your life unexceptionally. Okay, next. The feeling of inferiority versus an inferiority complex. Psychologist Alfred Adler framed it like this: the feeling of inferiority and an inferiority complex. Feeling of inferiority is a launch pad. I'm not educated enough, I have to study more than anyone else. That's enabling. Inferiority complex, I'm not educated, I can't be successful. That would be an excuse. True would be, I don't want to succeed because it's too scary and too intimidating to make this switch of lifestyle and identity. So what happened to you in your past is maybe not your fault or your responsibility. But clinging to these emotions is, especially if they are dragging you down. Because every experience is neutral at first, until you give it its meaning. You maybe cannot always control what is happening to you, but you can always control the meaning you give to things. Adler's theories enable the individual to choose a meaning for its struggles, and that will empower them to thrive, instead of staying in this victim abuser mindset, which is nothing else but a prison, a force that is constantly dragging you down. A quick shift in how you frame your past or your present experience can lead to massive empowerment. The stories that you tell yourself, they can either fuel you or they can drag you down. You hold all the power in the way how you talk to yourself. I understand that that's for some people a hard pill to swallow, but that's how I see it at least. Next, how to get over the feeling of unworthiness. Again, a concept from Alfred Adler. I got it from this book, The Courage to be Disliked. I made a whole book review on this channel about this book. 11 out of 10. I absolutely love it. I recommend it all the time. I would recommend you read it or you watch my review about it. Adler says if you want to get over the feeling of unworthiness, you have to feel that you are beneficial to the community, being a proxy for humanity or for your family. Knowing that you are useful for someone else is what gives you awareness about your worth. Here it's very important to understand this is not about your actions. Someone can be useful just by existing, a loving grandparent or a baby, for example. So the key is to make the switch from attachment to self to concern for others. So from self-interest to social interest. 3 things are needed at that point: self-acceptance, confidence in others, and contribution to others. It starts with accepting how and who you are, and then focusing on what you can change, rather than on the things that you cannot change. Adler calls this the separation of tasks. And that's actually Stoic philosophy as well. Again, an unpopular opinion from Alfred Adler that being useful will get you over the feeling of unworthiness, but I think it's actually quite intelligent. And competence will lead to love and respect. That's just how our world works. Next lesson, I will just talk very quickly about the books that I've read. So I got for you this ones and this one. So I will make that quick. So Ethan Hawke, Rules for a Knight. Very short book about medieval times and the virtues of a knight who is going to go into a battle the next day, and he writes a letter for his children because he thinks he will die. Not for his children, for his grandchildren, I think. Emotional, deep, spiritual wisdom, beautiful. Then the English title is Man's Search for Meaning from Viktor Frankl. Terrible life story about his life in concentration camps. He really details the horrors of it, but he always figures out to find moments of humanity and of camaraderie, and from both sides. So he is a psychiatrist, and he figured out those prisoners who could survive this time were those who had a purpose, who didn't give up, who had hope that something better would happen eventually. Then, I'm not 100% sure if I read this year or end of last year, but this is How to Win Friends and Influence People, a book on social dynamics, social skills. This is a classic. Definitely a great read. This one, David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. I actually only listened to the audiobook, to be honest. This guy is just a badass. Like, he is the man. When he details how he runs 100-mile marathons with only 4 milkshakes that he drank before the race, and he pisses blood and shits himself, while being injured. That's just, a testament of how much the human body is actually capable of, and how far you can push it and still come out on the other side as winning. He's a very inspirational person. It's because of his name, obviously, David. Then, Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda's life story of how he brought yoga into the West. We can see it, especially here in Berlin, how successful he was with that. Like, on every corner you have a yoga studio here. But yeah, he brought more than just yoga, like the moving yoga. Like, his yoga is more like a internal practice, and he speaks about all those sacred people who have superpowers, nothing else but superpowers. It's a good book to realign you with your spirituality, especially when you are like me, caught up in in all this work and all this rational data stuff. And it's a book written from the heart very much. Still, I gotta say, it's it would have been good for the book if it would have been like 200 pages shorter, because it's it's really time consuming and tidying in the end. But that's just for me. Then, I mentioned it before, The Courage to be Disliked. Amazing, amazing, amazing book. Philosopher and a cynical youth talk about life in general, relationships, emotions, and all problems that the youth has. And the philosopher, who is combining the schools of ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates and Plato, and modern psychologist Alfred Adler. And he is having the easy but controversial solutions for the problems of the youth. The whole book is written in a Socratic dialogue, so question-driven dialogue, and it's a fascinating book to read. I absolutely love it. So the next one, The One Thing, amazing book for entrepreneurs. The main premise is there's always one thing in your life that is, by achieving it, you would make a lot of your problems go away or make significantly smaller. And you just got to figure out what is this one thing that you should mainly focus on, and that will be responsible for almost all your results. So next one, Steal Like an Artist from how's it called? Austin Kleon. This is a really, really great book for artists because it brings you a little bit away from the idea everything has to be original and how great art is a result from copying good strategies that work until you have like the tools and like the subtleties, you know, to actually then create something that will be truly unique and truly you. But to get to that point, you cannot reinvent the wheel on every little stage. Yeah, great book. Then another one that I'm not 100% sure. I definitely started it last year, but I definitely remember reading it on Christmas, so I think it counts still to put it in this 2025 playlist. Phil Stott's Psychiatrist, Lessons for Living. Very great way of writing, very deep thinker, Jungian psychoanalyst. Created the tools that I use in my coaching program as well. Powerful dude. He has made a documentary with Jonah Hill called Stats, where they talk about therapy and his tools. And yeah, if you struggle with anxiety or with procrastination or whatever, give that documentary a watch and maybe those tools will be useful to you. Then The Way of the Superior Man, again, very controversial book from David Data, another David. He writes a lot about masculine feminine dynamics and speaks about like the non-castrated way of how a man should behave in modern, or in general, in dating and relationships, with being able to hold the polarity in a relationship. I learned a lot about masculine feminine dynamics in there. As I said, it's a little bit controversial, but I think it's both for men and women a great read, because it's as much about femininity as it's about masculinity. You cannot write about masculinity without speaking about femininity. So next one, Psychology of Money, another great book, 20 chapters about psychological misunderstandings or myths that we have around money and that we have in general, and that is maybe keeping you back from actually making some money. I learned a lot in this book, and again, I have a complete book review on my channel about this book. If you're interested, just check it out. Money Magic, that one wasn't that great actually. It's written by a shaman. It's basically containing, how would you say, affirmations that you should say 100 times a day to attract the money into your life. I was not the type for it. The Coaching Habit. This one is great. This is a book about leadership. Ask the right questions in order to get through to the people and to honestly create genuine relationships, connections, and a leadership role that from which one you can operate and help. And then here, Expert Coach Secrets, a book about coaching. Again, mediocre, but yeah, that's what I read. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I borrowed it to a friend of mine, and the sucker hasn't given it back yet, so that's on the list as well. A lot of books that I only read half or didn't finish, but yeah, doesn't matter. I don't think it's too wise to force yourself to read a book from start to finish when you feel at some point you're not resonating with it and it's just purely work. At that point it's fine to put it away and read something else. Maybe you already got out of it what you're supposed to get out of it. Okay, lesson number 8. The next level of the Pareto distribution. I'm showing you a clip again out of an old video from this book review again. The One Thing. There were so many gems in it, so enjoy. 20% of your work is responsible for 80% of your results. This is like a natural law that comes up everywhere in the world. Yeah, 20% of humanity holds 80% of all the money. However, now we are taking this one step further because Pareto actually didn't go far enough. So let's assume your work or your business or whatever consists in total of 25 tasks. Yeah. After you applied the Pareto distribution to it, you are left with 5 tasks that make 80% of your results. The 5 most important tasks. And then what we're doing, we're applying the Pareto distribution again to those 5 remaining tasks until we arrive at the one very most important one. And this task is your one thing. Now that we have figured out what is the most important thing, we double down on that. Reduce in an extreme way and you will become productive instead of just busy. A key element here is the ability to say no. No to all the things that are holding you back from doing your one thing. The whole book actually circles around this one very question. What is the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And then ask this question in every area of your life. For example, in your spiritual life. And spirituality became one of those buzzwords, but maybe you can perceive spirituality just as things that are not emotional and not mental. Yeah? For example, you could ask, what is the one thing that I could do to help others? Then what is the one thing for your business if you have one? Or for your finances? For your job? Or for your physical health? What is the one thing for your personal life or your important relationships? So I will put templates with very good questions for any of those areas down in the description for you. This is a very good question because it forces you to come up with a very good answer that is very ambitious and very specific at the same time. It is a skill to ask a superior question and it is a skill to find a superior answer. I made a drawing to illustrate it. Just ignore the shaky lines, okay? So the better the question, the better the answer. All right. Lesson number 9 is how to set yourself up optimally for the upcoming change in the world. Everything is changing with AI. No one really knows how to set up. And I made a video about like meta skills that are being very useful for the upcoming change. The world is changing. It's happening quickly and drastically in ways we cannot foresee. We don't know exactly how and when, but we know it does. So the question we all ask ourselves is, what is the most intelligent way to set ourselves up for the future? And what does intelligence mean in that context? I think the best definition is intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. The truth is we have no idea what is coming and we have no way to objectively measure in which way the world is going to change. The rate of technological innovation is crazy right now. I don't know about you, but like for me this is simultaneously inspiring and frightening. Recently I opened my social media feed and I saw shoes that would enable you to walk on water, or some glasses that would like project a holographic image right in front of you, like having a huge flat screen TV just from your glasses, you know. But on the other side there are those fighting robots in China, or Elon Musk's Neuralink that will give anyone with money like super enhanced cognitive abilities. As mentioned before, learn to become as adaptable as possible. Or in other words, improve your rate of learning, the efficiency with which you learn. Easily said, but how to do that? Very good question. So, you want to build a wider array of skills. I don't know where you grew up, but in Germany we are being taught you want to be an expert on one thing and neglect everything else. But that will lead you down into a trap, especially right now. So what I do a lot of so-called micro experiments. Very small things, try a new recipe in the kitchen. Learn a little bit about social dynamics and social skills to deal with difficult people in your environments. Try something new in your work or in your creative pursuits. And make it a mix of physical, mental and spiritual pursuits. It's less important that you're great at those things initially or talented, but rather that you are confronting yourself with the unknown. Become a jack of all trades and master of none. So when it's necessary to make a quick shift, you already have valuable experience for your new path. I know it is easily said, but the wider your set of skills actually is, the more unique your view and your approach to a given problem will be. And that eventually will make you more valuable. But even more importantly, you are in the constant habit of learning new things. So your rate and your skill of learning itself will be next level. The more you learn, the faster you will learn. This is a mindset that will increase your value so much. And by the way, you are doing something very healthy for you because you are constantly satisfying one of the deepest human needs, the need for growth. Humans need to feel they are progressing towards something. Because on a fundamental level, progress equals happiness. And aside from that, nothing I ever learned was wasted. In hindsight, everything was necessary and valuable. And I got magically molded into the person that I had to become. So if you're one of the people who just wants to be happy and figure out what your purpose in life is, your career, your family, whatever, then download my free guide where I help you find clarity with it. Yeah, it's a free PDF. Just press the link in the description. It's like 11 pages long. And if you like it, drop me a comment. That would be nice. All right, lesson number 10. Never go to sleep without a request to your subconscious. That's something Thomas Edison said, and Edison swore on that. He asked a question before going to sleep every single day, or he asked for a solution for a particular problem. And on the next day, he had a creative solution for it. And we all know Thomas Edison is remembered as one of the greatest inventors ever. And that was his technique. So I tested it myself with my alarm clock. So I just asked my subconscious before going to sleep when to wake me up. And I swear to you, it works every single time. Every single time on the dot. I wake up at the time I'm asking for it. So I know it would be wise to incorporate this more in my day-to-day life, even for YouTube videos. I heard from some YouTubers, they just have like a topic idea and maybe a title in mind, and then they ask their subconscious to give them ideas for the video. Then they wake up, flick on the camera, and then they just flow with it, and it just builds up perfectly. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I am not 100% sure if that's my style, how I would use it, but if it's something for you, take it or leave it. All right, lesson number 11. Optimists sound stupid and pessimists sound smart. This one I've got from the Psychology of Money that I mentioned earlier, this one. And I've got a clip for you. Optimists sound like they want to sell us something. They seem naive and stupid. Pessimists, on the other side, sound as if they want to help us. They sound smart and intellectual. When the Dow Jones goes down by 1%, it's all over the news and people everywhere are panicking. But when it gets up by 1%, it rarely is even mentioned. Pessimistic forecasts never take into account that a state of lack is the best state for invention and innovation. Another part of human psychology is that we do not realize small incremental progress, but we definitely remember setbacks and traumatic experiences. Maybe pessimism is so attractive because of the low expectations and the higher happiness when things turn out good for us. All right, so far so good. Let's go to the next lesson, lesson number 12, and this lesson is called CCIA. And this is a principle how you will be successful in everything you're doing. Phil Stutz, author of the tools to find the 3 truths of reality nobody gets to avoid.
This is pain, uncertainty, and constant work. So whatever you do, you will never get relieved of them. Meaning, there is no perfect time to start. It will never come. You will never feel ready, but you can learn while doing. What I do, I commit to an easy principle called CCIA, consistent, committed, imperfect action. It is consistency what it takes for everything that is worthwhile. Nothing that has any value can be achieved quickly. So consistency and patience are fundamental truths and principles in our reality. Committed means you are committing to a certain path. You're bundling your focus and your energy towards a certain direction every single day. You know, that's how you get progress. Otherwise, it is just motion. So let me use a gym analogy here. When you are working out with a proper trainings plan, you are going to see the results. If you go into the gym and freestyle it and think today I'll do a little bit of arms, tomorrow I'll do a little bit of stretching, day after I play a little bit of tennis, you will not see results in any of these areas. Because your energy is just directed in too many different areas. So still, motion is better than doing nothing. But if you truly want results, you have to commit. Especially the imperfect has been very important to me because perfectionism is my way of self-sabotaging. It's maybe a little bit more elaborate way of self-sabotaging, but it's self-sabotage nonetheless. So at a certain point, you just have to tell yourself, stop avoiding the things you're called to do and get after it, you know, because nothing beats experience. And numerous studies have shown that the best quality is reached through quantity, meaning through practice and experience. Lastly, we have action. As mentioned before, quantity leads to quality, and the history proves it. Whenever a great masterpiece has changed the course of history, it was produced by its creator in their most productive phases. I'm speaking of people like Da Vinci, of Shakespeare, of Goethe, Beethoven, Picasso, Mozart, and so many more. You know, or like the great inventor Edison said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.
All right, always be CCIAing. Lesson number 13. Here I will reflect a little bit on the Tony Robbins retreat. Or not retreat, how would you call it? Mastermind. So I went there in September 2025 and you know, it was quite cool to see Tony Robbins on stage, to do the fire walks. I never did that before, so that was nice and out of the comfort zone.
He's the fire walking. Here's the first one. When you go to walk on fire, the first thing you gotta make sure you do is obviously take off your shoes and socks. That would be very helpful. So you're gonna leave those off. And once you take your shoes and socks off, by the way, you're gonna be doing that in this room. You should be walking a short distance to get here. But you're going to leave your shoes here. Even if you're not planning on walking, you're still going to leave your shoes here. The reason is you want to be in solidarity with the other people here, and you might surprise yourself, okay? No one's going to push you to walk. But tonight is not about fire walking, but as long as you're here, why not give yourself the gift? So if you get up to the fire, we can get you in state. Now when you go to walk, there's someone beside you the whole time, and they'll see if you're not on state, they'll pull you off the fire. But it won't be hard. Once you get to state, you'll be there. So what's the first key to walking on fire? Let me show you. You get up, you put yourself in a peak what? So you're scared? It's okay if you're scared. Go, yes, yes, yes! And that's the first key.
And actually it was surprising how easy it was. And I was surprised how much you would dance all the time. But what it lacked, in my opinion, was like deeper psychological insights, because it was made for, you know, for a wide mass of people. There were like, I think 13,000 people or something, which is crazy. But yeah, it was a good experience. I wouldn't like to miss it. But for me personally, when I truly want deep transformation, then I would always choose to fly to South America and do ayahuasca in the jungle with shamans. Because that's just a different level. You meet yourself, you meet whatever entities in a complete different setting. And yeah, but that's just me, you know. Disclaimer, only do it if you feel a calling. Yeah. Speaking of ayahuasca, lesson number 14 is what a shaman taught me about their science of manifestation.
During one ceremony, one of the shamans said, whenever you speak your wishes, do it with a straight look forward so it can connect with the energy in front of you and reflect back to you. So this lesson is about manifestation. Who of you thinks that manifestation is a passive process? To sit at home and just think about the things you desire and therefore attract it. You heard it in my ironic voice. This is not how this process works or how we achieve anything in this reality. The universe wants us to take responsibility and that we take massive action. That's how we manifest anything in this reality. You know, it's a co-creation with the universe. And you need patience, a high work ethic, and you need to prove that you are truly serious. That's why action is the highest form of prayer. Have you ever thought about it in that way? Everything manifests. The life you're living right now is the result of your past, let's call it prayers. If they were consciously or unconsciously, it doesn't make any difference. And to take it even a step further, your whole life is manifested by the prayers of your ancestors.
Alright, another thing the shamans taught me was lesson number 15. You just need to know what you want and why you want it. What you do and why you do it. And the how this will happen, how the details of the whole road will be coming together. This will come from itself.
The shaman said, you have to figure out what you want to do and why you want to do it. The how comes from itself. So that's why I chose to do what I'm passionate about. And even though it was frightening and I had to start all over again, on my newfound path, every day makes up for it. Because I feel I'm now in alignment with my vision. So focus on the journey and not on the outcome, and know that inside of you are all the tools you need. Just connect to your inner strength. I had learned that I had to give everything I need to myself, you know? So I was not projecting it onto a goal or a person on the outside. And if the energy becomes too heavy on your path, you should clean yourself. Let it down in the ground. You let the energy in and you can let it out again. One very good way to do that is to go barefoot onto the grass and to visualize the dark energy leaving your feet and to inviting the light from up top. There are actually scientific studies that have proven that this practice soaks toxic metals out of our feet into the ground. Because think about it, that's exactly what Mother Earth is doing. Whenever you go in the forest or when you go into nature somewhere where it's beautiful, you know, it takes that heaviness away from you. Here's another nugget of wisdom from the shamans. Happiness is the hardest energy to handle because it can very quickly transform into euphoria. And that's the place where we get hurt. So keep that in mind. Be conscious of it as soon as your wish has manifested.
Alright, lesson number 16, and from now on we're entering the relationship section. I combined a few questions that we should ask ourselves before we enter a relationship or when we're in a relationship. First and foremost, do I maybe have to deal with my own stuff first? Are you always attracting the same problems in your relationship? Call it however you want. The universe, your patterns, or God, whatever it is, it brings you the same lessons over and over and over again until you have successfully managed them. So are you always attracting unavailable people, emotionally unavailable people? That might be a sign that you are emotionally unavailable. We always attract what we are. Are you repeating familiar childhood dynamics? Oftentimes from you and a parent with the opposite gender. Oftentimes we recreate relationships in which we replay those energy dynamics, those patterns that stem from early childhood. Think about the word familiar. It sounds like familial. And that's not by accident. And you know, even though if it's painful or even if it's destroying you, the fact that it is familiar to you is creating a certain safety. So we will subconsciously attract the same patterns, the same energy dynamics until we have resolved them. Relationships are the best teachers. View your relationship as your teacher and you can learn a lot, an awful lot about yourself. Just ask yourself these questions and you can take an honest look at yourself. What kind of person are you becoming in that relationship? Who are you turning into? Are you developing into your higher self? Or are your dreams suffering? Is your partner holding you back from growing your business, from growing your gym? And do you like the person that you have become when you're next to your partner? Those are all indicators that you can learn a lot from. Okay, next lesson, number 17, the difference between horizontal and vertical relationship. Again, from the book The Courage to be Disliked, another take from Alfred Adler, and he differentiates between horizontal and vertical relationships. Other way around. Adler differentiates between vertical and horizontal relationships. Vertical relationships originate by praising or rebuking. Both is a form of manipulation, both will put yourself in a higher hierarchical position than the other person. Because you are the one who judges. The person with the ability judges about the person without the ability. That way you create vertical relationships. It's hierarchical. Instead of horizontal relationships, which are defined by being equals but not the same. How we do one thing is how we do everything, right? So be aware, if you start building only one vertical relationship, before you even know it, you will treat all your relationships as vertical. So this is a nice thing to observe about the way how you create relationships. Another big factor is lesson number 18. It's one of the most important factors on how to create healthy relationship. And it's basically designed about psychiatrist Carl Jung's concept of individuation.
Psychiatrist Dr. Phil Stutz describes the process of individuation like this. Individuation is the process of waking up and separating from your family. Some families try to stop this process from happening. These parents subconsciously fear that if they allow their child to develop a unique personality, that they will lose them as loving and caring part of the family. That's why they put a lot of strict rules and expectations onto their kid. And that's why bravery is so important, because you have to be brave in order to violate those restrictions. It oftentimes comes hand in hand with a lot of guilt that the kid is experiencing. But for people who grew up in an environment like this, feeling the guilt is actually a good thing, because it means you're on the way to find yourself. Your painful emotions can be reframed in a more positive and empowering way that has some value for you. Think about it, when you go to the gym, you know that pain leads to strength. Be cautious though, because your guilt doesn't always mean that you did something good. You know, sometimes you violated your own codes of ethics, and in this case you definitely made a mistake. Not because of the expectations of other people, but your own philosophy of what is good and evil. You know, that's what we usually refer to as conscience. Oftentimes people in the process of individuation are fearing that they become insensitive or heartless, or that they lose the connection to their family. That couldn't be further from the truth though, because the individualized person carries all the power. It's their decision to say no to external expectations, but still be loving. You know, this is the balance of the fundamental energies within this universe. The individualized person carries both of them simultaneously, which enables him or her to act emotionally proactive. So the interactions are not becoming black or white, you know. You either be completely submissive or you fight till death. We want to be proactive and not reactive. And by being proactive, we can lead with our heart.
All right, lesson number 19. Those are 4 factors that keep a relationship healthy.
The main issue here is respect. Do you understand why? The person you're struggling with is probably not respecting you enough. But that's not their fault. Because in order for them to respect you, you have to respect yourself in the first place. No one will respect you when you don't respect yourself. So how can we create this true sense of self-respect? And I understand that you maybe carry some very deeply wired in issues around your self-worth, you know? To a certain degree, that's true for all of us. But you have to understand what these beliefs are, because you weren't born feeling unworthy. As a child, you were much more connected. Think about it. For example, as a 3-year-old in kindergarten, you could stand there and have a maybe a parent standing there, not one of your own, just a stranger. And while the stranger is talking to you, you could look him in the eyes, keep the eye contact while shitting in your pants. And that had no effect on your self-worth, you know, because you were unhinged as a kid. But with upcoming age, you became self-conscious and your environment told you what's right and wrong. So certain beliefs formed that just haven't been serving you, but you learned those beliefs and you can relearn them. There is no objective truth. You believe what you believe, and if they are hurting you, then it is just bullshit that's in the way and it has to get out of there. This is not what you are, you know? This is what you told yourself or what someone else told yourself in a state when you were very vulnerable. And that shaped you. Those are your beliefs and we have to rewire them. And thankfully, that's very possible. If you're able to do this yourself, great. If not, then get some help. Get a therapist or a coach or whatever. When it comes to self-respect, something you can start with right now is watch your self-talk. This is so important. When you say to yourself that you will do something, then you have to do it. You said it, you do it. You have to be able to trust yourself, so be very conscious with the promises you give yourself, because they connect your past, present, and future. You promise something in the past, you act in the present for a better future. It's very important that if we tell ourselves something that we want to do, that we keep this promise to ourselves. This is a signal of value to yourself, so it's much better to make less promises compared to falling short on what you have said. When you say you go to the gym, then you go to the gym. When you say you be there at 10, then you have to be there at 10. You know, your life will become a cycle of promise and action, or promise and fulfillment. So the longer you do this, you will get into a very strong momentum, which is based around respecting yourself, your time, and your words. And if you want to work on your inner child wounds, I'll give you the process here. So first, you have to become aware of the problem. And you can do this by observing your triggers or journaling about it. Then try to understand the origin, you know. You can look in your relationships because they always are a great teacher. Nothing triggers us as much as our relationships. Challenge those negative self-worth beliefs by looking for evidence against it. You know, reframe the belief with affirmations, for example, and have some self-compassion. You know, it's a rough life, so maybe engage in mindfulness exercises or do meditation to reduce negative self-talk. Take empowered action towards your new identity. Celebrate small wins, set boundaries to protect your self-worth, and if you're insecure, you can do role plays, you know, to prepare you for the real life situation. Create a positive environment. This is possible online or offline. And have long-term strategies like regular reflections, you know. Have a vision board or something that commits you to continuous learning. And again, if you want a video where I go deeper into that topic, just comment yes, self-worth, and I will do another video about it.
No one will respect you when you don't respect yourself first. So how are we achieving this true sense of self-respect? In short, find your courage as described in the lessons before. Be self-reliant, know your self-worth, and be able to set boundaries. You have to be able to set boundaries. And if they get violated, you have to act. And then sit into this harmony, if necessary. Being able to handle this harmony is a male principle. It's your male energy. And maybe that's exactly what you're missing. Healthy male energy that is able to sit in a conflict, that sits in this harmony without getting, without losing the control of its aggression. But I don't know, maybe you have too much male energy or immature male energy. In that case, you have to grow up or you have to balance it with female energy. Psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung says, you have to learn to balance your masculine and feminine side within you, your anima and animus. Because every relationship is a dance between the masculine and the feminine too. So to master it on the outside, you have to master it on the inside, and vice versa. Alright, lesson number 20, the relationship to authority. And that's definitely something I struggled with a lot in my life. And this concept I got from Phil Studd's Lessons for Living. I spoke about it 10 minutes ago or so. And It's a great book. Again, the author is a genius. I can only recommend you read him. And yeah, let's dive into that concept.
Important to mention as well is the relationship to authority, because you are striving with this process to become an authority. So it's very useful for a grown-up person if they have been submissive to an authority before at any point in their life. If not, there is like a missing feeling for him or her, and it's hard to keep and hold that frame of authority up. If that healthy feeling of authority is not present, they will much likely act either too shy or too sharp. For example, in the 60s, the zeitgeist was to let children decide themselves when to go to sleep, how long to watch TV, what to eat, and so on. So even though this stemmed from a very good place, it disturbed their relationship with authority. They intended to create more freedom and individuality, but it actually led to a generation that had very much struggled to develop into strong parents. And on top of that, it's very unfortunate that our society is not valuing the wisdom of older people. You know, our elders have been experienced so much, and we waste the opportunity to learn from that, you know, which probably leaves them feel very irrelevant. It is the responsibility of the youth to gap the bridge between the generations and to open up the channel for communication. You will be surprised how vulnerable your parents will become when you are creating that shift in the power dynamics between you. And as a result of that, forgiving will be so much easier for you. And you know, this is the only way to be at real peace with yourself. True individuality can only be achieved by discipline and submission, but not to another person, but to a higher form of authority. An authority that is defined by the specific challenges of your life. This form of individuality is a lot of work, but it consists of an inherent power which others can feel. It is not only leading to respect, this is healing and an inspiration for other people in your life. If it's your parents, your friends, or your boss, you know, it doesn't matter how your childhood has been, there are ways to build up this inner higher authority for every single one. And the best of all, you will find true freedom.
All right, lesson number 21, the paradox of attachment and of needy energy. So this is basically the concept of letting go. Again, I made a video about it, and here is a clip.
What is it you really want? Finding your true love, becoming successful, or finding your purpose? What if I told you that the more you hold on to these things, the more you actually push them away? And the secret to finally attracting them is to let go. Sounds crazy, I know, but this is the law of detachment, my friend, which basically says the degree to which you are attached to something is the degree to which you create resistance around that very thing. And maybe you heard the quote, what you resist persists. So in this video, we'll dive into the concept of letting go so you can stop repelling what you want and finally start attracting it. Hello, I'm David, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Okay, let's break this down. Why does clinging, whether to a person, an outcome, or a goal, actually drives what you want further away? Because you embody a certain state while chasing. You're subconsciously projecting out the energy of fear, insecurity, or neediness. You're not operating from a place of having a full cup, but from a place of having a lack. You try to achieve wholeness because you're feeling incomplete, and this vibe is very repelling. So the subconscious message you're sending is, I am insecure, please fix me. Which gives the underlying signal of I am broken and I need you or something or someone to make me feel complete. Unfortunately, that's tied to our pop culture, you know, which is giving the ideas of you need to find your twin flame to be complete or your one true love. But you have to understand, this is just marketing and manipulation to sell you stuff or to get you into those movies or whatever it is. But the truth is you are already whole and complete. And that lack you are feeling is just a psychological projection, you know? And every relationship or every goal that you attract based on that energy, based on that state, you know, will be very inauthentic, and it will be a mixture of trauma, of projection, and, you know, of need. and dependency. And I'm speaking about when we fundamentally believe something is wrong with us, or we're not good enough, or we'll never have enough money, we'll never attract the right person, whatever it is. All those belief systems, they are just hurting you on the deepest level possible. So the key really is to let go for good, to let go of your attachment to these things and your projections, because then the magic of life can happen. And even if you get into a relationship that you have attracted based on this scarcity mindset, you will maybe not feel it right away, then the relationship, it offers a temporarily band-aid, and this band-aid is, making you not feel this deep self-worth issues or whatever there is. And as soon as the relationship breaks down, because it will when it has been based on that emotions and that energy, then you are much older and back at the same place, just a little bit more miserable, and you realize you just distracted yourself all the time with this relationship instead of actually doing the work you have to do. Relationships are not there to fix us, but they're doing a great service of revealing ourselves and revealing our shadow parts. So relationships are a true teacher in this life. Okay, let's get into the paradox of attachment, Think about the last time someone was overly available to you. They texted constantly, agreed with everything you said, they dropped their plans to fit yours. I mean, in the beginning it maybe felt flattering, but after a time, didn't it feel a little suffocating? And on top of that, when a person is always present, it signalizes that they have nothing going on in their life. This is the energy when we chase. It's a subconscious message. I need you to make me feel okay. I need you to make me feel whole and complete. And this not only goes for relationships, as mentioned before. This is for every area in your life, It shows up how we chase promotions, how we obsess over goals, or how we view ourselves. Now here's where it gets tricky. Because what you're clinging to isn't even real. It's not the goal or the person or the dream. It's your idea of what you think it will be for you, your projection. So instead of creating something real and organic that really fits your life, you are trying to force your idea onto the world. And this idea is completely based around me, what it does for me, how this person will be for me, what this goal will make me. It's a 100% egotistical agenda. And then in the end, you wonder why it made you miserable. You are holding on to an illusion, your projection of the need for validation, security, and love. But those you can only find within yourself. And on top of that, you do a huge disservice to your partner, to your work environment, and especially to yourself. Here's the truth most of us don't want to hear. Whenever we cling to something, it's rarely about those things and mostly about our idea or projection of what this thing will be for us. So we're chasing an idea, the idea of happiness, validation, or a sense of being enough. But no one can give you those things, not permanently. That's an inside job. And whenever you cling to someone or something, you kind of give away the responsibility and to ask them to fix an insecurity within yourself that you have created in the first place, growing up or whenever. And deep down, we know it's not their job. But still, we can't stop trying. And as mentioned before, this is not just about romantic relationship. This happens everywhere. In work, we overcommit because we think this promotion will finally make us feel valued. In friendships, we sometimes maybe fear saying no because we think we're setting up the boundaries and maybe lose those people. And in goals, we obsess over the outcome and forgetting that it's about the path and that the road is where the magic happens.
All right, and last one, lesson number 22. The real healing happens in the community. If you're someone who needs healing, listen to this.
Are you interested in the healing potential of ayahuasca? The biggest lesson for me was that the true healing always happens in the community. The plant medicines, they can work as a portal, so to speak, but the true healing always happens in the community, through the love, through the support, and through the compassion amongst each other. Here is an example of how important communities are. You can torture psychopaths by isolating them. And psychopaths are the least social human beings on the planet, but even they need community. That means every interpersonal relationship in your life has a great healing potential. Do you want to heal your heart? then give as much love as you can. And in the first place, don't give your heart to anybody who is not appreciating it. You know, it's a very precious thing. So I speak from experience, you know, it takes one to know one. And what the shaman said as well was, the very best way to heal yourself is to believe in your power to be able to heal yourself. And when we speak about healing, it's important to mention the greatest healer of all, and this is nature, Mother Earth. I once went into a forest for several months when I needed healing myself. And thanks to the forest and thanks to the spirits of the forest, I could get healed myself quite quickly. There is no right or wrong, just experience. Don't repeat mistakes, but don't be too hard on yourself either. Mistakes happen. Watch your words and your thoughts and make decisions when you have to. But take your time beforehand. Create a vision, aka perspective for your future. Dream big and focus on the journey and not on the goal. You don't have to be too fearful because you're in the hands of the Great Spirit. And the more spiritually developed you are, the more you become the Great Spirit. Prepare yourself, support others, and use your tools wisely. Be patient because results take time, and follow your heart. That's how you create the magic in your life. And be aware that the things will turn out differently than you have imagined in the first place. Richness comes in many ways, and abundance is beyond money. Health, time, and people are the real resources, and the Great Spirit will see you and see what you do and will grant you with what you deserve. Help others, but don't burn yourself out. Be safe, be positive, and be in service. As you give, you will receive. So you need to really trust and never feel less. When you're watching this video, I know it's words to the wise, but maybe you could get something out of it. Alright guys, so those were my 22 lessons from 2025. So you can make 2026 your year. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. And here I will link a video where I speak about my experience when I lived almost 100 days in a forest and built a cabin. So if you're interested in that, click it. Thanks for watching and goodbye.